All right, the webinar's up so people can get in and we can start.
Okay, so I got the minutes done, so I hope I spelled Carrie's name correctly. And would you please all just review them, because I took them some months ago. So did everyone have a chance to just briefly look at them?
I did not. Oh,
From what I remember, it looks correct.
Thank you, Tina. So I'll just give you another minute, but I mean, basically, I just, generally, the thing I wanted to be sure is that the Gaga pit, I wasn't done in June. It was done in some months late or sometime later. So I think that's, I think that's correct. So, do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that when people have had another chance to take another quick look? And we can put it in the back of the meeting.
Hey, Randy, I didn't get them for whatever reason.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't get them
Found them in
either.
the spam folder. Check your spam.
I went
It
through it
was-
today.
yeah. It was in an email from Randy.
So I think we should,
I didn't get it either.
Review-
And sometimes my
It's
emails
spam.
from you guys do go into my spam folder.
yeah, a lot of
It
them
is,
are.
mine was in spam just now, just FYI.
I don't know why.
Randy, it came at 2:54 today.
that's correct.
Today, 2:54.
Brandy, let's approve the minutes the next meeting because they weren't part of the backup information. So I think they have to be, in order for us to approve them, they have to be part of
No problem.
the
Okay.
advanced, you know what I'm saying? The
Right,
advanced
by
information.
Friday before the meeting.
Right, so why don't we just put a
No
note that
problem.
will approve the June
Okay.
2021 minute and the November meeting?
Okay, sounds good.
Just reading this reminded me that the Gunder Boom wasn't there. Did it get replaced this season, or you went without a Gunder Boom all season?
We went without a Gunder Boom all season.
And how was it without all the rain and everything else? Because this harbor the West Basin looked awful at some times after the,
So
and you had
We
the oil
were-
spill too this year,
we
right?
got double the amount of rain. I had to do a report for Jerry. So normally we get like in a summer, so Memorial Day to Labor Day, let's just take that, it's like 100 days. We normally get like 10.5 inches of rain, like in that period in the normal summer. This summer, we got close to like 19.5 inches.
Right.
So it was so much more rain. We were closed, the water was closed for 22 days by the county because of it was over 0.5 or it was over an inch, no matter what, even if
Right.
Gunder Boom, no Gunder Boom. The samples were, after like, I think after Henri they were astronomically high. They were higher than, I think it was like 3,000, and under 104 is acceptable. It was like ridiculously high. But
Right.
we also got, I don't know, a bunch of inches of rain in a short period of time, which they claim, yeah, that will do that. But it was a really high number. But they were sampling that number in all the other areas too. So Gunder Boom, no Gunder Boom, I don't know. It's one of those, I don't know how much better we would have fared with it in.
How about the oil slick that spread up from New Rochelle? It definitely was in the West Basin. Did it?
It
gather
did
at
not
the
come
beach?
into our area. The county came quite a bit of times after that, and they didn't detect anything in the samples or visually see anything.
It seemed like it was collecting at the end of the West Basin then. Because there was definitely oil there in the week after that whole incident down there.
Could be, but in the county sampling, we never got shut down for that, and they sampled a lot during that period. I mean, more than normally do once a week. They were here like 3 times a week. They were here quite a bit. So, yeah.
Interesting. Maybe it was on our own oil.
That's also, anything's possible. Look over any bridge in this village after the tropical storm and everything looks rainbowy. So, yeah.
So do we want to go on to the fees?
We could do the, what's it called first? In the backup, I have the income statements from beach parking camp.
Whatever you want to do, Jason. This is,
Okay.
why don't you handle the report however you want to handle it?
Okay.
You and Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
So So if we just go over the camp real quick, camp was really, I think I gave a brief like update last meeting, but camp was really successful this year in terms of enrollment, I think, in terms of camper satisfaction. Financially, I think we did quite well. In there, I provided you with the basic financials. So we had 260 kids. We brought in about 304, we spent about 215, and we were in around 71,000 or so in profit, mostly because we didn't bus this year. So we didn't send the kids out because of the pandemic, which saved us roughly 40,000 is usually what our bus bill is. So that was pretty.
All right, Jason, when did you send that? Or I'm just looking.
Last Friday.
Did you send it or Charles send it?
Charles sent it last Friday to the group.
And it's in a PDF and it's in the back of the file.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
the,
sorry, I have it. Yep.
you'll see it. It's I don't know, it's towards the end of the attachments.
Yep.
It's 21-10-0-3831.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry to hold you up.
So that's camp. Anyone have questions specific? I mean, you guys have the documents.
I don't have a question, but I will tell you this, that my little grandson, who's 9 years old, loved going to camp this year.
I'm
I mean,
glad.
rainy days, he was upset when there was no camp, as opposed to prior years. So you guys did an awesome job, and I hope you keep it up.
We try, we work really hard on it. Camp was important to everyone this year, and I think the kids really liked it. The parents I know liked it because I got little complaints compared to previous years, which was shocking.
Yeah, I have to follow up with saying the same thing. You guys did a phenomenal job because I keep getting parents coming up to me saying the same thing, that this year was amazing. With all the programs and stuff for the older kids that they were able to do. So it was great. Good job.
And there was no field trips, which is a challenge for us because when you have, 50 7th through 9th graders and you're not able to send them to a water park, or you're not able to send them to the pool, or they can't go bowling, or they can't go to the movies when it's pouring rain, it's tricky. So we had to get a little creative with bringing people in, but overall it was a really good experience. And I think the kids really liked
I
it.
think whatever you did, it worked. So maybe keep it going next year. You don't have to buzz them all over the place.
I know we're going to try to cut it down. I do want to try to give a few trips because the kids look forward to going to the water parks and
Splashdown.
Yeah, like Splashdown and lake compounds, and they look forward to it. And I know when I was a kid, I look forward to the camp because my parents always didn't want to take me there, and it's yeah, I get to go to lake compounds or whatever, so.
And you're amongst your
We'll try to
friends
do-
as well.
What?
And you're amongst your friends as well.
Right. So we'll try to do a little trip or two, something. So we're working on camp already for next year.
Good.
Question on the discounts, because we didn't give out any discounts this year.
No,
So how
no.
much did we save in cutting those out? Because
So-
that'll play into the fee schedule for next year.
So we saved, so if you just take the employee discounts, it was 25,000
Wow.
just on employees. Now, and then if you take in the early bird, it was probably another 12.
So that's huge.
It's a lot, but I think the employee discount is also going to come back this year from my understanding, from my brief discussions with Jerry preliminary. We had a meeting with him the other day for the schedule and just a bunch of other things, me and Jeff. So that's my understanding. And I think the village wants to have that commitment.
So
That's
if
for,
you give that back and the busing, then we're back in the red, right? I mean,
Yeah,
just-
we're
just
gonna
for-
be, yeah.
Right.
But that's why I have to do my job and figure out how to make that bus bill go way down by taking the kids out less, which is fine because the model worked here this year. And if we could just throw in a trip or two or whatever, I think, but that's my plan, is that if we're gonna put the discounts back, that I have to figure out something with that bus bill, and there's just no other way around it.
Well,
Because,
maybe the employee discount could be less.
That's what I was gonna say, Randy.
Suggestion.
Maybe not 50%, maybe 25%, or
Right. So
not quite so much.
we're gonna talk about that as another topic. We're gonna talk about that. So like when Jerry brings it up, we'll have it as an agenda item, discounts for camp. Because that's not part of our fee schedule, but yes, it does play into it in terms of revenue and what we're gonna make. So
All the kids shouldn't be deprived really good bus trips because we're giving away $25,000. You know, there's got to be
Agreed.
a
I don't know
balance.
if it's
between
giving
the two.
away. I mean, it's an employee amenity that lots of
Right.
employers offer, and it's offered to volunteer firefighters too. Is that right?
yes, correct, Dan, yes.
So, I mean,
And EMS.
and EMS. I mean, I think it's a fairly inexpensive way to have a volunteer firefighter. I mean, we can talk about the rate and everything else, but I'm generally in favor of offering a discount like this when we can, if it's possible. And overall, the program, even with a surplus of $71,000, we lost money this year because it doesn't include any of Jason's time or any of
Oh, no, yeah.
running his team or.
Yeah,
So we
you're right,
lose
Dan.
money anyway, is kind of my attitude. I mean, I realize we should be limiting it, but I think it's a great amenity we offer to the community. The fee is still reasonable. and
Fee-
if we
wait, the
can
fee is
continue-
incredible.
It is incredible.
It's
As
the
is the
best.
town camp. The town camp is also incredible. It's a great value.
I mean, that fee is a break even number, but at what point do you raise it so that it's, if you throw in busing, that fee's a break even number, what point do you raise it so it's unaffordable for the resident? Right,
Well,
like,
Right.
affordable for whom? I guess that's the issue. I mean,
right, I mean, like
one
1,100 to me for a resident is a fair price for 6 weeks of camp based off of everybody else's prices for residents. I mean, some are, I mean, you can't compare it to a private
You're
camp.
comparing it to the wrong, you're wrong comparison. Your comparison is the private camps as a
You
starting.
can't
point.
compare it to private camp, so
Well, I mean,
I think it's a fair, do I think we offer way more than what other municipal camps offer? Yeah, for sure. Like
you have a great facility for it.
yeah, we have, I mean, you can't kayak and paddleboard at most municipal camps. You can't fish at most municipal camps, but that's also because of what we have here, you know? But I think the fee is fair. I mean, I'm open to suggestions on that resident fee in particular.
Listen, it's the greatest deal in town, and we've been talking about it for years. If you do the math, I mean, it comes down to like $3 an hour or something like that, which is, you know, a great deal. And, you know, again, I've always said we need to up it, and that's where I would go with more revenue.
If you, camp is usually 29 days, depending on where July 4th falls. It's like $38 a day, $1,100. If you pay $1,100, it's like $38 a day to send your kid to camp.
For 6 hours. of camp. How many hours is it?
Six.
That's great value. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm curious, I mean, I know, do we have many non-residents? It seems.
Dan,
relatively-
this year was about 20% or less. It might have been 18% if I remember.
That's more than I would have expected.
But it was also lower because our numbers were slightly lower. So we didn't take non-residents because unless resident didn't want the spot, you know what I mean? And that was only for mostly for like the older kids because the younger kids sold out. So.
I mean, I realize I'm getting into the territory of, you know, kids going to school together and not going to camp together, but you know, the non-resident rate is very inexpensive to me.
I agree with that for sure.
And I think that's where it needs to be raised.
Yeah.
Not the reference rate.
So do you want to go on to the fees, or do you want to finish?
Yeah, why don't we go to the fees? Because then when we get to beach, we could just bounce back to the fee schedule. You know what I mean? So why don't we just go to the camp fees and then we'll go back to the top of the fees?
It makes sense.
I ask one question?
Sure.
I'm just curious, did you get all of the employee kids without the discount, or did some not send their
Some
kids?
did not send them. They
Okay.
personally told me that I'm not sending my child because the employee discount's not here. So,
Were
yes.
they aggrieved or they couldn't stomach the cost, or what was it?
I don't
Was it
know,
coming?
dude. I don't want to speak on behalf of the individual I spoke to. It could be a mixture of both. I think, me personally, I don't feel like they can't afford the cost. I think it was more
Just
principle.
the principle
Yeah.
that they were going to
Yeah.
pull their kid out on principle?
And
I
it
don't
was one
know.
person, right? Jason, was one person?
Might have been 2 people total.
Okay.
Might have been 2.
All right, so let's
But
look at,
we got new employees this year too that I haven't gotten before also. So, yeah. New employees, kids, so.
so the orange is the daycare.
Oh,
Is
yeah, so the
daycare.
yellow is the fees that we're talking about, where it says 1,100 for a resident. And then 1,300 for a non-resident, that's like the early registration rate. And then the later registration after March, April 1st is 1,200 and 1,400 for non-residents.
So do we need the early bird at all?
Listen, we didn't do it this year, and I didn't get one person say, where's the early registration rate? No one said that to me, which I was.
So that says to me, we don't need it. And plus, it's double you have 2 timelines you have to meet.
When was the last time we didn't sell out, Jason?
For camp, I don't know, Dan, since I've been here, it's always, I've been here 6 years. It's always sold out.
I
Or
think
it's always max.
I don't recall that was sold out when Sandy was here. I could be wrong. Who else was involved?
I think one year it was
Tell us
sold.
the numbers.
We get good numbers. I mean, I never had a problem getting numbers. This year, we had
Oh, you were
waitlisted
limited.
kids
Yeah.
on the.
Yeah, and then historically, we've always had a wait list, historically. Correct.
The
me if I'm
last 2
wrong,
years,
Manny.
we've had wait lists. I know that for
I mean,
sure.
I want to keep in mind, we want to be inclusive and make sure everybody in the community can participate, but that's probably telling us what we need to know about the pricing. We're not far off, and there's definitely room for more appetite. And do we offer, is there a scholarship type program and how does that work into that? Is that a separate fund or?
If someone is interested in a scholarship, they contact us, and then we will ask them if they receive free or reduced lunch based off
Right.
that program, and that's how we'll determine what the need is. And they'll provide us a letter from the school district, or
Right.
sometimes it comes directly from the state, and that's how we'll determine the need. So it's
So
like
it just seems like it was a low number last year. It was not even $2,000 in scholarships, which.
no, I didn't get a lot of applicants, and I reached out to the CRC, which was weird because some years we've had $10,000 in scholarships.
So we're experiencing the same thing with soccer, which I think unfortunately a lot of families are moving out of the community, but that was before the storm, of course. So this really so it's the same process I think all the sports leagues follow then basically. We all know the school resource officers and
Right, exactly.
CRC, and they tell us.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. That's how we do it, Dan. But I've noticed this year I had a lot less applicants, so I don't know why, but yeah.
So what would that scholarship number be in a normal year?
I think in 29 pre-pandemic, it was like 8,800 if I'm gonna look at it real quick.
So about 15 or 20% of your kids are getting a scholarship.
Yeah, not this year though.
No,
But
right.
yes, in a normal year, yeah.
Exactly the same numbers we're seeing with soccer. We had actually very few this year, which was unusual.
Which I thought it was unusual too. My staff thought it was unusual, like it was, yeah, so.
But there was never that many scholarships before you, Jason,
No.
because
that's right.
I asked about that at one meeting, and I think I kind of helped you to try to get some more kids.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the.
Yeah, no, yeah.
scholarship.
I know.
I'm
And that
totally into it, so.
I'm asking because I think, I don't know, I'm speaking for myself. There's definitely, it seems like there's room to increase the rates even more if you wanted to, and the sellout is telling you that. But I want to be cognizant that a lot of families, even if it was half this, it would be a hard problem for them, a hardship to pay for that, so.
I think my personal feelings is that we can eliminate the early registration and not get any pushback.
Correct.
I mean, I think that right there, I think is, and then if you wanted to increase the non-resident fee, I think we could easily do that as well. But personally, I don't want to go over 1,200 for the resident rate, but I'm here all years,
I agree, Jason. There should not be a discount for registering early. There should be a fee for registering after a due date.
The other thing to note is that 98% of the residents register early to begin with. So that
Correct.
rate is almost non-existent to begin with because everybody registers right away,
as
So-
soon as word gets out about a wait list, you don't need a early registration.
Well, they're fearful of getting closed out.
Right,
That's
exactly.
why people register early, is because they know that they're gonna get closed
Right.
out, especially for the
Right.
younger kids. But I
Especially
do
for the
think
younger.
that the
kids.
non-resident
Right.
rate can be increased. I think it's a very small increase over the resident rate.
Right.
So why don't we start with the first one? Do you want to eliminate the early registration? Yes or no? What do you guys think about that? I think that's the first question.
Or. wait,
Yes,
I think
Especially if you got no
Yes.
complaints about it, if you got, no one questioned it.
Keep it at the flat rate of 1,200 is my feeling, you know?
Okay, I'm good with that. And then you want to increase the non-resident rate from 1,400 more? You want to increase it more? Is that what I'm understanding?
So I'm just thinking about what we charge non-residents for the docks. It's
For the
nearly
what? Say that
double
again, Dan? I missed
To
that.
be on the dock. I don't know what we charge it for a mooring ball, but on the dock, they're nearly double.
They are double. And we're,
I'm not suggesting we do that because there's issues with kids going to schools, right? We're all one school district, more or less, with Rhinebeck and everything. And we want to make sure that kids can feel like they can come here and their parents are getting a value, but it's an exceptional value even at $1,300. So
So how about 1,500 for the non-residents?
Where are the non-resident kids coming from?
so that's a good question, Manny. I'd say of the 25% of the camp that is non-residents on average on a year, 90% of that 25% is town, Larchmont, or New Rochelle.
Okay, so how about if we have a separate fee for, the Mamaroneck area?
Right.
And another
Town
separate
charges Ryan at the reduced
No,
rate.
it's got to be the village and non-village, otherwise.
So Manny, I hear you, and I've been trying to, for years, I've been bringing this up, and my bosses always tell me that if you don't pay taxes to the village of Mamaroneck, you shouldn't get a discounted rate. That's what they tell me.
I agree. So
No,
what's
but
our
the
number?
point that Dan was bringing up, that kids are all intermingled together. in the
Right,
same
so it's an issue, right, yeah.
Yeah.
the
Correct.
town of Mamaroneck gives a discount, a different rate for Rhinebeck residents.
Yeah. It's
Right.
not fair.
For them to use the pool, so
Yeah.
I think that it's only fair.
Yeah.
They're part of our community, even
So,
though.
so are you saying that we do a town Larchmont rate?
No, there is no town of Larchmont.
A
It's
town of
No, no, no,
Mamaroneck
no.
rate.
American Larchmont. It should not be as high as New Rochelle or even further out.
Right, that's what I think too.
It's
Town
just
of
a couple
Mamaroneck.
$100 more.
No, I understand, but there are kids. They're all in the same community. We're all in the same neighborhood.
No,
I would raise it to 1,500, which is 25% more than the standard of 1,200. And then you can go up to 1,700 for, say Scarsdale, New Rochelle, White Plains.
I just want to keep it clean. 12, 15.
We could do that. I'm gonna have to figure out how we're gonna administer that fee.
That's the thing. It's not worth it.
The hard part about it is because you register online, my staff's gonna have to go in there and figure out a
and
way.
then everybody will start gaming it.
If it's only
No,
one
we're
or
gonna
two
have to,
people,
we're gonna have to, Dan, we're gonna have to do it like we do every year. We're gonna have to like literally take their utility bill and their license, compare it with their registration and figure out like, yeah.
I just think you need to have 2 fees. That's it. Keep it clean.
For
Yeah.
me,
It looks like, what, there were only 38
30 kids.
non-residents
Yeah,
in
total.
total?
Right.
so those are from the town, so why are we making? it
Town and Larchmont. Yeah.
Larchmont is in the town.
2 feet?
Larchmont is in the town, but they have Larchmont addresses versus Town America addresses, There's
Correct. They have different zip
Yeah.
codes.
different.
It's not,
zip codes,
it's
so.
different jurisdictions. There's a very small mile and a half village of Larchmont. People have Larchmont POs, but they actually live in the unincorporated town of Mamaroneck.
Right.
So let's do 1,500 and we'll leave it at that.
Where are we
flat
at
rate.
now with them? So the
But I
other-
have a question. When I look at the spreadsheet, there's 1,100 and 1,300, and then underneath is the 7th to 9th graders, which is slightly more expensive.
Yeah, the 7th and 9th graders is always more expensive.
So what are we talking about? 1,200 and 1,500
So
for the
I
young
think
kids?
For the regular kids, which was the first one we were on, we didn't even get down, I didn't even move down the next block yet.
Okay.
So we're doing 1,200, no early, right? 1,200 for residents, 1,500 for non-residents. And then the 7th through 9th, we're gonna do, it would be 1,300. and 1,600. If we're gonna keep those increments. I don't know if that's what we're gonna do.
I think I like that. Other folks, what do you guys think? Let me
Thumbs
see.
up.
You want to go into the next line?
Are we okay with that? Before I move on, just
All right,
want
just repeat it one more time.
okay, so for regular, so for pre-K to 6th grade, for a resident, 6 weeks, 1,200. Non-resident,
That rate is not going up, right?
no, that's the rate.
Okay.
For non-residents, pre-K through 6th grade, 1,500.
Okay.
7th through 9th grades, which we've always had a higher fee. Residents, 1,300. Non-residents, 1,600.
So you have a $300
Higher fees
differential in one of
because-
them. and
So it went up
$200 in the other.
$300? It's
So
going
the-
up $300?
No, the
Is that,
non-resident differential is different. between
Yeah,
the
it's
two
different. Dan is right. It is different.
So these fees for those higher
So
grades,
for the lower grade, it's a $200 difference between resident and non-resident. It's
I
12.
thought it was 1,200 and
300.
1,500.
Yeah, so it's $300 difference.
So they're both 300.
And then 1,300 to 1,600.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Sure,
three
yeah.
hundred
Let's
more
talk
for
about how much
each.
more income you're going to generate and what you're going to do with it. Because you're going to generate, I can't do the math in my head, but you're going to generate about $30,000 more, I think, a year. That's going to cover your buses, or is that what's that?
Well, the
And-
bus is about 40, but that would cover a good portion of the busing, yeah.
Right, that you didn't have this year, and then
Yeah,
More
and then you would put the
scholarships.
discounts back in and it would hopefully kind
more
of,
scholarships as well. If
right,
Wow.
yeah, balance each other
Right.
out.
And you may be cutting back on busing also, right?
Yeah, well, that's my goal. So instead of a $40,000 bill, maybe we can get it down to like 30,
30, and then net zero.
Right.
what do the scholarship participants pay? Do they pay?
They pay, so if you get, Dan, if you get like a free lunch or you get the most aid in school, you pay 25% of the total.
Right,
And if you
okay.
reduce, you pay
It's on a sliding
50%.
scale from there.
Yeah, they have 50%, yeah, usually. But when like in the last few years, I've only gotten 75% scholarship, only given out. So there hasn't been too many people that, mostly the higher need, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so that was camp. Okay, good. Do we want to do the beach fees, which we didn't really, so if we go to slide up one group there to beach and parking, I'll just talk to you about what we did increase. We didn't increase any of the resident membership rates or the daily fees. We did increase the non-resident individual parking membership. So if you, per car, it would be $110 for a non-resident now. In the past, it was 102, or last year it was 102. And then the non-resident individual beach membership went from 100 to 120. And the non-resident family beach membership went from 225 to 260. So those are the only things we increased on beach, was the non-resident beach tag, the membership, the daily membership. The daily fees we kept the same, and for parking and beach. And so those were the increases there.
Can I ask why we don't charge non-residents more on the daily rates than we do our own residents?
It's going to be really hard to check licenses and IDs at the booth. So that's why we encourage everybody to buy, just if you're a resident, to buy the
And
25 or
Jason,
$90 pass.
have you looked into the system the town of Rye uses in their park?
With the gate, and you have to pay at the machine and all that stuff.
No, you buy a ticket and you park. And then somebody checks your car. You have to go through proving that you're a resident and all that stuff. You pay a fee, they give you a sticker, you put it in your window, and then you park anywhere you want. And to go into the beach, you buy a pass, which is a different one.
Yeah, so that we kind of have that for the beach. For parking, you either buy the tag, which is on your car.
Sure.
So- and then they drive around. If you don't have anything, it's a ticket. And then daily park, if you just want to park daily, you go to the pay station, put your card in, it spits out the ticket, and you put it on your dash. So that's what we have right now. And then obviously they drive around and write tickets if they don't see the seasonal tag or the daily receipt.
Yeah, the town of Riot, they got rid of all their meters and all those parking things, so it's just a bare, parking lot.
Okay, well, I know we talked about that last time, but I think,
It's a good idea. It's just a lot of, I gotta figure it out and see how much money it's gonna cost too.
but right
Like,
now,
it's-
right now, we don't have a problem, do we? It's working pretty well, isn't it?
Well, there's always room for improvements. Is it working well? Yeah, I think it's working well. Do people get over in parking? Sure they do. I think there's room for improvement always at tweaking the system. It's just finding what system's gonna work for the harbor. Right now, we're collecting our money. Yeah, we're doing okay. We have someone in the booth helping people, and people seem to be paying at the boat ramp, and people seem to be paying the daily machine for the most part, but yeah, I think people are getting
Well,
away without
This
paying. all
is
the
so
time.
much better than some of the members who've been on like a long time like me. This is so much better than what we've heard before in previous years. To the newer members, I just want to say that there was a lot more incidences of difficultness, that this seems to been mitigated. That's all I want to say.
And if you just look at the revenue line also, Randy, you know as well as I do, we're making a lot more money in comparison to the history.
Previous years, Carlo, right?
Right,
I was
exactly.
just gonna, how does this number compare to 2019, Jason?
This number's down 30, the daily's down 30% or so from 2019, from the pandemic year.
And the seasonal, and how about the boat launch? Do we know?
Boat launch is down for now, but I can't compare because the boat launch is still going. So the end result we're like 9,000 down, but it could be by Thanksgiving, that number could be really squished, it could be a lot less. So. But
Can I
also
ask-
Glen Island was closed, so that when you don't have that boat ramp open, I think we had a lot of people coming here versus Glen Island to launch their boats.
Yeah,
when-
are you confident that we collected everything that we could have out of that?
No.
Because there's nobody there in the morning, and I know others have brought this up before. It just seems to me that getting somebody on staff at 5 a.m. would probably be a good way for us to collect a little bit more revenue out of this.
So on Friday, Saturday,
Rich
and
Slingerland used to
Sunday,
give us all kinds of reasons why, for whatever reason in his head, the village couldn't hire somebody at 5 a.m., but I can't fathom why. I'm up there sometimes pretty early, or down there pretty early, and it seems to be pretty busy.
so this year we had someone there on Friday, Saturdays and Sundays at 6 a.m.
Okay.
So
that's
we
good.
did this year, and it helped.
Mine
I
isn't
think it
help.
helped. The weekdays, it's a little slower, like Monday
So-
through Thursday, it might be a little slower early morning, but
There were people out there. I mean,
it was a little bit busy so we
Mm.
did have someone there at 6 a.m., which was helpful, I think, for us.
That's great.
well, I'm actually, now I want to be proven wrong. What was the volume at that hour? I mean, it looks busy.
No, it was worth it, Dan, because think about it. You're paying someone $15 an hour and one boat launch is 40.
Right.
So I'm not really worried about like the volume. It's more enforcement too, to get people in the mode that yes, they're checking, someone's there and we can
Right.
take advantage of it. And yes, we're collecting money. I like the person in there at 6 a.m. on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think it was helpful this year.
And that's when you're gonna have most traffic also.
And it actually just dawned on me that I was also thinking about early in the season, because I don't think in April we had a whole lot of coverage there at all.
We had no one
And-
until Memorial Day weekend.
And boy, was it popular. So we
Mhm.
lost a whole bunch of
Freebie.
revenue because nobody was, minding the store. And that was disappointing to me. I think I mentioned it. I can't remember who I meant. It might have been you, or I guess it's been brewing inside me because we haven't had any of these meetings. But
Well, we're glad we're having a meeting, so Dan, you can,
now I can get it out of my system. But
I'll write a note, Dan. If they want me to hire someone April 1st, I certainly will.
Well, see,
But
why
right
we
now, it's
wouldn't?
not the budget. So,
it's a
but yeah, I get it.
popular ramp. It's a great ramp. We have a great harbor, great protected harbor with amenities, and an easy ramp.
Jason, can you find somebody April 1st?
Well,
No,
doesn't the ramp not open till the end of April anyway?
No, the boat
April
ramp is
1.
gonna be open 24 hours this.
The docks open April 1, mostly April 15th officially, but usually unofficially they're open on April 1. So
So
people need to
can we
use,
just talk about the ramp fees for a second? Because
Well,
This-
but Carrie, before you go, we don't do ramp fees. The harbor master's office.
That's
does.
Jeff.
Yeah,
Other
we
Jeff.
don't do daily ramp fees. We don't do ramp parking pass fees. We just, the parks staff collects the fee, but we don't set them. The harbor master's office, they're not even on the sheet because I don't have any involvement in that.
Oh, I thought they were on a lower down.
No, we don't have any involvement in setting those fees. Whatever they
So
give me is.
it's on
what
the,
I-
it's on the income statement. Harbor Island Parking 2021 season income statement. It
Yeah,
has
because I collect the fees. We collect the fees, but we
Okay.
don't set them. So the staff we hire collects them. but
Okay,
The harbor's master office sets the fee. So
Okay.
because I collect them, I have to reconcile and show, like, look, we took this much.
so if I have any issues with the daily user fees, I need to go to the harbor master?
Yes, he'll be able to help you. And there, he's working on his fee schedule as well. So it's a good time.
Okay, I will do that.
Is there a
Um,
volunteer committee that is involved with the harbor at all?
Well, you just read my mind.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I know, so when I was on the budget committee, Carlo, you might have been on it. I know Manny was on it at the time. We
Yeah.
had Joe, when he was a harbor master, came and gave a presentation at least twice, I think, just to take us through what he collected in moorings, including around the other side of Flagler Drive, Satan's Toe over there, by Hens and Chickens, all those moorings are the villages. And what he was doing, for docks, and there's been a lot of discussion in the budget committee about investing in the docks and maybe.
Honestly, guys, this is a great idea. We should, I mean, what do you think? With regular with some having the other Jeff, I don't know what his last name is, but to come to one of our meetings.
Jeff LaRusso,
Oh, it's Jeff LaRusso?
LaRusso, yeah.
Okay. What do you
And-
guys think
and
about
we've had-
that?
Historically, they've come on occasion, when we put in a request to give
Yeah.
us an oversight.
You guys like that? I like that.
I think it's
It's
great. I mean, it intersects,
Okay.
all the conversation we've had about the kayak
exactly, it
racks
makes,
and
just makes logical sense.
everything, Jeff, you guys did to expand the kayak. rack.
Okay, so we'll see if we can get him at the November meeting.
Okay, I'll write that down.
I'm putting it in the minutes.
Because in going on what you just said, Dan, about the kayaks, Joe Russo, he came and gave a presentation of what his thoughts were. I don't know what it was, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So they do come if we put in a request,
Right, Carlo, it's not without precedent.
right? And it goes someplace too with it. So it's all good.
The other fee, before we go to the top portion, was fall softball. I wanted to raise $50 from 700 to 750. We haven't raised that in a while and it's low. So I think we can go up $50 on that one and be okay.
How many people are on a team usually?
20.
Oh my God.
Hey, Jason,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think we spoke over the summer because I got 2 people called me in reference to the league and how they were basically, what was the word? How did they phrase it? They were having over 60. The kids were basically pounding the old timers, we'll say. Remember that conversation or?
Oh, I do. But
Yeah.
if you only have, when you try to start an
Right.
older men's league and you only have 2
Right.
teams register, how are you
Right.
supposed to start a league?
Right. And-
So
but
I would start it right away. I would do like a Wednesday night. I could have over
Right.
60 or an older person league, but the interest is not there. I tried
Right.
starting a
right.
co-ed is very popular, but I started trying to I had a few people want to do all women's league. I only got 3 teams. You can't run a league with 3 teams, right? So
Right.
that's the
I was-
challenge.
Yeah, I just remember that was an issue and they called and we spoke about it and so forth. And you told me that there would be no team.
There would be no team. It's not that I
right.
don't want to do it. I certainly will do
right.
it.
Right.
But if the registrations aren't there, then it's,
Yeah.
no
But-
go.
But don't you have to have X amount of players on the team, like say over 50 or wherever the cutoff may be?
Yeah, you do, but we still, no matter what we put down, we weren't getting enough teams.
No.
we
I mean, on the
amended it.
rosters that they currently have, do they have to have 3 guys who are 50 plus?
Yeah, No,
No.
that's not a rule we have now. No,
Okay,
no.
okay. All right.
What happens if we did a 50 older league? Try just a 50 older.
We could try, but I don't think we're gonna get the teams.
How are you marketing it?
I mean, we put it on Facebook online. We don't really
I'm
have a
not on
marketing.
Facebook.
We don't really put we don't really have a marketing budget, you know, to do it, but we put it out like Village E-Blast, like we put all of our programs out the same, you know, places.
So, I mean, I'm asking a bit facetiously, but I'm also thinking about all the people that, missed all the great notices that the village put out on Wednesday morning before the storm because they're not on there. I mean, it was, however we can broaden that with even bigger banners at the harbor or something might be worthwhile to think about, because I didn't even, until Carlo mentioned it, I wasn't even aware of it. I think there'd be a lot of interest in something like that. Just off the top of my head. I'm also amazed at how inexpensive softball is. It's like, I can't fathom, it's the first time I've ever looked at the price. How come it's less than half the price of a youth sports program?
Well, for
They're also
the,
run by volunteer organizations. Are there costs that aren't captured here? Do you have insurance costs? You don't pay field fees. We pay field fees. You don't have insurance costs because the village is paying that.
we have
Is there anything else
electricity
I'm
costs.
missing?
We have electricity costs, umpires, and trophies and shirts, field paint.
But you don't pay the guy to paint the field. We pay that also.
No, we don't pay the guy to paint the field. Exactly.
Right. We pay Joe to do that. You guys don't. Interesting.
Yeah.
But we're happy to pay our $30 an hour or whatever for our fields, Carlo.
All right, let's
35.
move on. Let's
35.
move on.
35, Dan.
Yeah.
All right, let's go up to fields because I think that's the last thing. Nothing. I mean, we can go back down, but let's go to fields because that might take a while. So, comments.
So is the softball program charged a notional amount at least for the field cost? I realize it's one pocket to another, but just to get a like for like so that we can see if a program actually breaks even or makes money. I hate to harp on the softball program.
Yeah, but then do you charge camp a field fee? Do you?
Maybe, yeah, I think, I already made the comment that the camp loses money, right? Because we have a lot of staff that are dedicated to that we don't charge their time to, and the facilities that we maintain and operate. And I don't have a problem with it. Just as long as it's an amenity for residents
What?
or near residents. Softball, how many of the participants are residents of the Village of Amerenik? What percentage?
For the spring, it's 100% because it has to be.
Give a video.
For
Oh,
the
right.
fall,
Okay.
it's not. It's probably 80%, but I think we have this year one team that's like Harrison or something.
Oh, that's
For the
not bad.
spring, they're all residents.
Anybody that participates or anybody that registers a team?
So the registrant for sure, the participants have to give us their name, their address. And they all say Mamaroneck, whether they are or not. I know a lot of these people, so I know a lot of them are, but
Right.
could there be a few that sneak through? Sure.
Yeah.
But there could be a few in Rhinebeck School District that snuck through too. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Rhinebeck is Village of Amerenik.
no, but I'm saying there could be kids that are going to school in Rhinebeck or Mamaroneck that don't live in Rhinebeck or Mamaroneck. You know what I mean? So
I think we
it's true.
need to move on, but I wanted to say to Dan's point, Dan, if you feel that softball is grossly under resource, that it, they're not paying their fair shares, the kind of drift I'm getting from you, then maybe you and Jason can have a discussion offline about, because they're pretty zealous, enjoyable people who, and
As long as
I
it's
want
a
to,
benefit for residents, I'm all for it, at whatever price. I enjoy my inexpensive dock space, for example, but when we run a program that has a lot of non-residents that are enjoying our reduced fee, then.
But I don't, but that's not what we do here. All of our programs are, by far, all of our programs registered are more than majority resident all the
Okay.
time. And then, yes, do we take non-residents for kayaking? Sure, but there's always more residents than non-residents. Even
How,
Scarecrow was like 80% resident,
I've-
village resident.
And that sounds like the right number to me. And we have lots of non-residents whose kids go to the private schools at St. John's and Paul or Fasney. They're part of our community too. So I don't, as long as it's not 50%, like we have teams from Eastchester coming in or whatever it is, then I'm fine with that as long as we know that.
Oh,
That's kind
well,
of my question.
if you guys know anything
Kind of
about
what I was
me,
getting at when I was. asking the
outsiders
question.
are only welcome once the residents have exhausted every playable area or indoor program spot and/or whatever. Residents always a priority. I mean, look at the harbor. We don't rent fields to someone who doesn't have a Mamaroneck address, it's just like,
Right.
you have
Okay,
to be.
so let's go on to fields.
Okay. So fields. We did some research. So we went to our other municipalities, and I think they're on the spreadsheet, and we tried to figure out what everybody else was charging. Trustee Natchez wanted us to do that, so we did that. And we kind of figured out that maybe $35 for the hour is the price we should be at based off what Larchmont is and New Rochelle is and everybody else around us. Do I think 35? I think it's a big jump from 27, but when we met with Jerry, that's the number we came up with. We're all open for discussion, so we can discuss it,
I'm curious about what the comparable fields were. Were they?
Well, Larchmont, their cheapest field is 35, and in my opinion, they're running a dump over there, but that's just my opinion.
That's for the A and B?
Yeah.
A and B?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Which
and
is-
that's a dump.
That's a.
And I
swimming pool.
agree.
When,
that's-
it's
Dan,
only an,
if they
it's
get-
only an $8 jump.
But it's a lot.
That's a huge jump. For
the league, it's a lot.
For reference, I don't know what baseball pays, but we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars for the soccer program that we pay to the village on time,
But-
I might add. So it'd be a pretty significant jump for the families because we'd have to jack up our fees
The
as well to
price.
cover that.
If
Yeah,
it was,
but-
if it
but-
was to increase, when would that increase go into effect? Because that would be the other problem for the leagues, because they have already
So
set.
it would be, you would get your first invoice for the spring. So if you started in, the fields would open like April or so, that's when the new fee would probably start.
And
Which would be a problem, because the travel
Mhm.
soccer charges their fee in the summer, and that's for the whole year. So
Right.
like that, they would lose for that spring because they didn't account for it.
but you have money in the bank.
Not
Not what you
LMFC.
think it is. I don't know where this myth of money in the bank comes.
So
from.
let's go back with history, because Dan, you and I sat on the budget, and you know where this all came from, right? So initially, when we started the program, it was $25, and we wanted to start it higher. And we said, let's start it low, and we're gonna do increments. And then we're gonna say, and then Jerry came on board, and we always asked what the surrounding communities were charging as well. And Larchmont's been charging $35 for a non-playing field, okay? It means trash, okay? What we have down at Harbor Island in comparison to other communities is phenomenal, okay? In my opinion, okay?
This year
So,
it is. Definitely.
huh?
This year it is, I agree.
Yeah, and it's gonna get better as time goes on, because Jeff's on board now, and they're getting new equipment, they're gonna do a lot of overseeding, it's gonna be lush. They've
Can I
got the water-
also,
They got the water cannons now too, so we just have to come up to par with Larchmont and with other surrounding communities.
but I
that pay
also
for it.
think that Dan will, and Tina, I think both realize how the fields are laid out. You're kind of getting two soccer fields for the price of one right now,
Right, exactly,
where you could probably be getting charged 27, 27, 27.
Right.
You're probably getting charged 27 times 4
correct.
for an hour, where you're getting 27 times 2 at the most, right? So now that's the way we didn't discuss relaying out the fields, but if you just look at it like that, it could be a lot more if we literally laid out each soccer field and charged by like that, which a lot of communities would do. I think 35 is fair for what we offer the soccer league. I think 35 for an hour of using Getz Diamond is a great deal. But it is a jump from 27 to 35. It is. So
And
I'm not-
Gets
saying
gets a
go-
lot more maintenance, day to day, I'm guessing, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but Gets and Cunningham and Kronberg require a lot more care and feeding than the grass fields. So, there's staff time involved in maintaining the clay
And
and
the other,
doing lines and all that other kind of stuff.
The only time I maintain a field is when there's a game. So Getz does not get lines or leveled or anything on practice days. It only gets lines leveled and bases on game days.
But in the spring, that's every other day, isn't it? Or is it?
No, it's not as much as you think. I think it's like 2 or 3 times a week in the spring, and then Saturday and Sunday, and then in the fall it's once a week.
And
Once a
They
week.
said-
they pay
There
for
might,
it, Dan, though. They pay for it, though. Like, we
there
charge
might,
them.
Oh, you charge a separate fee for that? Okay.
Yeah,
never
we
mind,
charge
'cause
the line
you know,
it, we charge
Phil
them.
Carp to do the same for the.
So
Right.
soccer
can
field.
Jason, how did you come up with that jump? Is there a reason for it, or could
So
it?
we
could-
base it off like the surrounding community. So like the cheapest surrounding community we could find really was Larchmont at $35 an hour. So that's where we got, when we sat down with Jerry, that's
No.
where we got that number. But knowing
No,
that
I
it
know
is a
that.
big jump too, so
No, so what if you guys do 30 instead of 35?
I'm good with 30 for this year. If you guys are comfortable with 30, I'm comfortable with 30.
Well, a
But
10% increase is better than a 25% increase.
Yeah.
So 29.1.
No, it's 30% increase from 27 to 35. That's 30%. I always look at percents. I know $8, it doesn't seem like a big amount,
No,
but
it's
when you look
huge.
at it as a percentage,
no, it's a big
3%
amount.
is a big increase.
I do the
Yeah.
bills. It's a big amount. It's gonna be
Yeah.
a big amount.
Yeah,
It's
I
gonna
mean,
be
I don't have a problem with it if it makes you like in the realm of what our neighboring districts charge. You know, maybe it's a long overdue increase,
Can we,
but
if
I'm
we,
good with whatever because it's not, the people who use the fields, I think, have the most knowledge and the most
Yeah.
input as to what
Dan,
they think
I
is fair
think
and
that-
reasonable.
if we can get to 30 as a group, with the consensus is knowing that we can figure out a way just to get, I'm not saying, I don't think we should be the highest charging, but where we can get a consensus where we can be competitive with the other fields and with the others, and I think 30 is a good start. And I think 27 to 35 is a big jump, and I think it's a big jump.
So
I also don't
why
want
don't
to,
we agree?
I also don't want to pass those costs on. I don't want a kid's soccer bill to go up $50 or whatever. I don't know what it equates
Well,
to,
so
but,
to Tina's point earlier, we've already set the rate for the whole season through next June.
Well,
So
I
any
agree. So why don't we
increase-
do 30 this year and 35 next year? So we have it already committed. We don't have to
Right,
discuss.
and they
it
can
again.
budget accordingly.
But
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. for
Or if
what?
you want to
Why-
split the difference, you do 32, which is approximately 20%. Instead of 30%, you do 20%, and then you only do 10% next year.
So we talked
Something
about
like that.
We talked about the increase for the camp in context of all the buses that didn't happen this year and trips and other stuff that's gonna jack up costs, and they still ran a surplus, right? So not without staff costs. The soccer and baseball programs are just net money into the Parks Department. I mean.
That's
I
not
mean,
true,
it's in
Dan.
general fund.
I have a staff member that dedicates a lot of time on permits, like you think it's easy to do these permits.
I
It takes-
don't actually, but I know that.
It's
guy
a
on
lot
our
of
side,
hours
Ben
of
Scott
permit
does it in addition to a full-time coaching gig and
It's a
coaching high
lot.
school teams. So I mean, I appreciate that, but that's kind of their job, right? I mean, we're paying for them anyway. And
Okay, so
I mean,
it's,
the other thing, I mean, this is more a question for Jeff. What can we look forward to in the way of investments in the next 2 or 3 years? We have the water wheel, aeration. We got the seating equipment approved, which is great in the last budget, I think.
yes, we did.
And we want to see it used. I'd love to see us invest. I think Jeff, you and I talked about just some fencing so we can start maybe closing off sections of field and restoring them or something else over time.
yeah, so my long-term plan on the fields is one day I would actually like to get to the point of closing, say, field 1 on Croce, leveling it, overseeding it, sanding it, getting it to tip-top shape. When that field's ready, open up that field, close down field number 2, level it, fill in all the divots. Let's get it flat. Let's get it nice. Let's get it plush. Open it and just keep moving on.
So can I give you also history? Because we did that in the past as well. Mandy, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
We put snow fencing over one field a couple of years. And you know what took place? Snow fence came down, people kept playing.
Yeah.
Correct, Manny?
Yeah, it's a question of enforcement. When you do all this
Right.
maintenance, you got to keep
Right.
people off the field.
Right. So,
Okay,
that's
so-
what go ahead, Jeff.
So as of right now, we have some code enforcement personnel in the harbor that are looking for vehicles, dogs off leashes, code violations, that kind of stuff. So I feel that if we continue with the code enforcement in the harbor, you also have a watchful eye during the times that sports teams are playing. So it's not just like we'll close down the field and then everybody turn around and go look at it.
Right.
That's where I feel like we can actually do this and close a field and let it regrow and let it become stable and then open it.
I'm all for it. I mean, I'm just thinking of the conversation Tina and I had back with soccer, and I'm sure baseball's gonna have the same conversation. We go back and say, yeah, our fees are gonna go up, but they're really have a big, Jeff's got a big investment plan. Jerry's supportive. You'll see the fruits of this over the next couple of years.
Right.
That's actually a pretty easy sell, believe it or not, because everybody wants that. And the alternative is to go through a long process with Fields for Kids and all that other, raising
And-
funds and
And
everything.
Dan, I think we have a capital plan that's better than we've ever had. Like, we
I
actually
agree.
have
Completely.
things in there that we can do and that'll really help the fields, that will help the kids and the community. And we have a lot more support than I've ever had for capital projects, which is really nice. So,
And I mean, Jason and Jeff, and you guys just did a great job putting in the piping also for those water wheels. It's going to eliminate a lot of time, Jeff, correct? Or am I wrong in that assumption? I mean, it's amazing what's taken place within the last 3 years in comparison to in the past. I mean, it's just incredible what these guys are doing. My only request would be now is like, Jeff, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you guys too, Tina and Dan, the fields are going to get shut down. The last game is what, like Halloween approximately?
the Sunday before church, the Saturday before November 20th, I think is the last
Okay.
day of fields.
And Jeff, you can easily go in there and start putting some soil in, like I've always screamed about behind the school house there. You can drop in, say 10 yards, whatever it may be, throw some seed in, whatever germinates. It may not germinate, but then you can get there early spring again and throw some more seed and it may start germinating again. Because once you have a pool of water there, and Tina and Dan, you guys know, and Manny as well, it shuts it down for quite some time.
Over by the post road, that area.
Right, exactly, where the schoolhouse is. So that's my only, or any other divots, as you
Okay.
said.
We need
Jeff,
to, I just want to get
So-
some consensus.
Carlo, you're talking about between the two ball fields?
Where the
Or you're-
schoolhouse is,
Yeah, you're talking about down near the seawall.
near the, no,
Near the
well, there's,
seawall.
near the seawall,
Seawall and
basically.
schoolhouse.
Right.
See, the problem with that is we could spend literally millions of dollars
No.
dropping topsoil there.
Yeah,
Once the tide comes up,
yeah. No,
every
No, no, no,
season
no,
it
no.
washes away.
no, it's not, Jeff, no, it's on the playing field. It's not the erosion where the seawall is. It's
So it's
further up.
between Getz and Gromberg baseball fields, the soccer fields right there.
We call it Field 4 next to, he's talking about the area between the right field of,
Yes.
Gets left field in the treatment plant. That area.
Yes.
Close to the post road.
Soggy. Yeah,
So that area, let's say, would be first on my list. Close that off.
Right.
Because the more the seed germinates and the more roots we get,
No.
the less wash away we'll have.
No, but it's a matter of just implementing and starting. And
Okay, we need to move on. We
Yeah.
can talk about this ad nauseum. So
Can
do
I-
people-
Can I have a turn to speak about the field fees, please? Okay, so I'm not disagreeing with raising the fees. My concern is the timing. So if whatever we agree on tonight goes into effect June 1st, is that correct? So my suggestion would be if we, and I do think that we should raise the fees, but the soccer league has already budgeted and has charged their players according to what they know the field fees are now. So I think if you want to raise them, that we should do it in a smaller amount and also set it for the following year now so that they know and they can plan for that. Otherwise, it's always going to happen that way. Like, do you know what I mean?
No, you're right.
So like, I think that if we're gonna agree on a fee increase now, we should increase it for this year and another increase for next year, if that's
So
what we're.
Tina, are you okay with the 30 versus the 35? And then the 35 the next year?
Dan's better with the numbers than I am, like
And
Dan.
are
do
you okay with that?
I mean, a 10% followed by a 12% or 15% increase, I mean, that seems awful high. Actually, it's an 18% increase. I mean, I have no idea why Larchmont charges $35. I don't know who they charge that to. Maybe that's their, I don't know if they have a different not-for-profit rate. We haven't used their fields in a while. But, you know, in principle, yeah, I'm supportive. And I think, you know, we want to make sure that the money's there and Jeff has the resources he needs to keep doing what they're doing. So in principle, it seems high to me to go up 10% and then more than 10% the next year. So,
Can we agree
Why
on
don't
30
we
this
keep
year,
it
at least
30?
30
Why
this
don't we,
year?
sorry,
And then
Jason.
figure out where we can go from 30 to whatever you want to go to.
Why can't you
Or
just do
what if
10,
we
10,
keep
and
it
10, do
30
it
and
over 3
30?
years?
Yeah, why can't we just keep it 30, 30 and then increase it the third year?
That makes sense.
Whatever.
The
That
third
way-
year?
I just think we should
Or
do
whatever.
30 this year and
What
then,
if we just increase it $3 a year for the next 2 years and then reevaluate? Because if Jerry really wants to get to 35, we have to lay out a plan that shows him we're gonna get there just over time.
I mean, and you're talking about, at least for soccer, you're talking about a lot of scholarships. I mean, I don't know, Dan probably knows the numbers, but it's a lot of our kids from our village and a lot of scholarships that we are constantly trying to raise money for. We're not like large these scholarships.
Yeah, but you guys have merged together, right? Isn't it one entity
They-
now?
They didn't give us any of their money, Carlo. They had their own. bank.
Seriously?
That's correct. Yep.
they're not on the obligation to, so, you know, they're their own not-for-profit. If you'd like to take it up with them, you're welcome to take it
Their
up with
own
them.
rec.
I will, Dan, you know that.
They're still running their own rec program. The rec
Really?
program for the younger kids is separate. Yeah.
I did not
Interesting.
know that. That's really.
I thought you guys
Neither did I.
merged. I thought you
That's
guys
Sorry,
did.
guys, that's a whole nother discussion.
But
We
that's
want-
what-
Happy to discuss local league economics with you. Anybody, actually. Tina's heard me enough, so she's probably sick of it.
You mean our rec league is also Larchmont League?
Our rec league
Yeah.
for all of the kids who are in middle school and high school play in the Larchmont League.
all the kids that
But
play,
our rec kids that play on Saturday mornings, are
At
they?
the Harbor,
Our-
it's
our-
it's LMFC, which used to be
That's what-
MJSL. And at Larchmont, it's LJSL or whatever they call it, Larchmont
the
Soccer.
Larchmont rec doesn't play at the harbor.
Correct.
Okay.
So we're good with 30 and then what was we got to finish up. So 30 and then
30, 30 and 30 and then reevaluate. That's what I
Well,
thought. no?
let's just do 30 now because
Correct.
reevaluate could be a lot of things.
well, then I
No,
think
but
we
Tina
should.
was asking us to set it
No,
for
but-
the following year as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if our intention is to try to get to 35, that we need to set the rate for 2 years now, because the soccer league.
What you
can't-
like, Tina?
I mean, what if you want to do 30, then I would say do 30 and then 33.
Yeah,
Right.
do about 10% an increase. So, and you will get to the 35.
Right. Then you could even get to 36.
Well, yeah, you will. You'll get to 36 if you do the 10% each year.
But then you can budget accordingly if you know what the
Right.
rates are gonna be.
Right.
I mean, it's
No.
easy. It's really simple.
Right.
So if we
30
do
this year,
30 in
33.
2021, 2022, we do 33 and 2023, we do 36. Just, we don't have to decide on that, but like, if we
It's not
just think
concrete.
about it, just
Right.
Okay, I think that's really great teamwork, folks, because everyone was heard.
so I'm gonna put down 30 for 2021 though, correct? Or
2022. That's 2022. We are 2021.
yes, correct, Tina, 2022. Yes, thank you. Because we are in 2021.
And then 33 for 2023.
Yep, and 24. Yep. For 2024-36. So are we good on that? Those were the only changes I had in terms of fees from year to year.
I think we're okay. Jeff, did you have anything else you wanted to add from your perspective on the facilities?
No, I don't think so. I think I said everything I needed to say. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. But I mean, I see Dan on a pretty good basis.
With my dog on the leash, I'm at Ed.
Yeah, dog on a leash. That's right. That's what I like to see. And if anybody ever has any questions or comments or opinions on anything, please feel free to contact me. I'm always open for discussion.
Jeff, I think
So-
the dog park committee has to reach out to you to set up a meeting. I think it kind of stalled a little bit with summer
Yes.
and then Ida and everyone, I don't think any of us really wanted to bother you guys, but we'll shoot you an email just so we can get that ball kind of rolling again, if that's okay.
I'm there all week, so
Great,
Music
Works
to
for
my
me.
ears.
thank you.
Do you guys
I
want to
think
vote
before-
on this
I
fee
think
schedule?
Before we go, I just want to say to Jeff and the Parks Department staff and all the DPW workers in the Village of Amerenik, what an unbelievable job they did during this flood and the cleanup. I think they went above and beyond what they're supposed to do. And just want to thank them and that we appreciate them very much.
Agree.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Completely agree.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Do you guys want to
Jason.
vote on the fee schedule? And then Cindy, do you want to talk about you want to make a little
Oh,
comment? about
sure.
your show?
Sure, let's vote first.
You want to
So-
vote on the fee schedule? Okay.
All those in
Yeah.
favor of the schedule as we've discussed, please raise your
Sure.
hand. Any opposed? Okay, it passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are hosting at the harbor on October 23rd, a benefit for the flood victims. It's going to be a free concert. And I'm in a band and it's local Rhinebeck parents. And we wanted to do something because we just wanted to help. So we felt this would be a fun event for everyone to come down. And at the same time, we're being sponsored by the Fuller House from Larchmont. And so, come and enjoy some music and, maybe donate if you can. And we hope to see everybody there.
You're sponsored by whom?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right because some of my friends have volunteered there. It's the Fuller House in Larchmont.
Oh, the Fuller House.
Fuller
Thank you.
Center or Fuller House?
I thought I.
I'm sorry?
The Fuller Center or?
The Fuller Center, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's at Fuller Center, yeah.
Great.
So, yeah.
What is that?
So it's October 23rd. I think, Jason, are you going to put
Yeah, I'm
something
gonna send out
out?
an email tomorrow. Yeah, I'll send you guys an email with the flyer and everything tomorrow.
Cindy, is that a
So we-
Saturday or a Sunday?
It's a Saturday and it's in the afternoon from 3 to 6. We're not putting any banners out. So if you guys could try to use social media and get people out there, that would be wonderful and really helpful.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Great. Randy, did we want to have the meeting the first Wednesday, November, whatever that is?
I think it's second,
We're gonna stick with that, November,
Yes,
whatever.
because.
Third, November 3rd.
Oh, it's November 3rd. Okay,
Yeah.
so the next meeting is November 3rd at 7:30.
Yep. Okay,
So I need somebody to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. That would
Motion.
be Carrie and Cindy, you want to second it? Great.
I second it. Mhm.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I'm
Good,
glad we got to
guys.
see each other
Good luck.
again.
Everyone stay well.
Thank you. You too.
all
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Thank you.